Welcome. How's it going, everyone? Great to have you on our first happy hour for this 2021 season. It's great to see some new names here. We had like such a rotation of a lot of Western New Yorkers when we did this early in the off season, Bob, and I think we're going to have a lot of Wisconsinites on here now with the chance to talk to the great Bob McGinn. So it's great to meet everybody here. I'm sure there'll be more people like trickling in as we roll along, but like real quick, so before we introduce the man of the hour here, let's just whip around and everybody just kind of like introduce yourself, where you're from, how you found us, anything you'd like here real quick.
That's cool.
Joe, get us rolling.
All right, I'll start first. My name's Joe. I'm a Buffalo. I'm an expat living in Queens, and I'm a Buffalo expat. That's what I meant to say. Anyways, hi.
Beautiful. I see a Daniel Pizzanelliello. I'm not gonna be able to say it. Sorry.
I'm in Lowville, New York, which is upstate New York, about 2 hours northeast of Packers owner and Bob McGinn fan.
That's right. We were talking on email there a few days ago.
Right.
Great to see you, man. Thanks for coming. All right. RJ Donovan, right? Well, we don't have your volume. Let's see here. We can't hear you, RJ. Can you hear us? All right. Well, we can't hear you, but thanks for coming. Let me see if I can unmute you. We'll figure it out. Don's in the house. What's happening? We've got
just wolfing down dinner because I thought you guys started at 6:30, so I was pleasantly surprised to see 6:45.
Yeah, you're right on time. Chris, what's happening?
Hey guys, I'm Chris. I'm from Washington, D.C. From Milwaukee. Grew up there. Been reading the Bob in the paper as long as I can remember, and proud 2009 graduate of the University of Michigan as well.
I was gonna say you brought the right hat. Jason Jordan, my fellow Syracuse alum, up on Mount Olympus. How's it going, bud?
Oh, not bad. So Jason Jordan, otherwise known as Lone Star.
That's right.
I haven't gone by that name in about 12 years, but I've been reading Tyler's work for the last 14 years. I've always been a fan. I stayed a fan. And here we are. It's a beautiful thing.
It's great to see you, Lone Star. Thanks for coming back, man. Joe Cannon, what's happening, Joe? How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks, Tyler. It's good to be here for my, I guess, what do I say? First-time joiner, long-time listener. I usually listen to the podcast of these things, and I'm excited. I'm excited. Bob's on board. I've been a Packer fan since the mid '60s, and so I've enjoyed him and enjoyed listening to you when you were back with the Press Gazette and stuff as well. So I'm excited to be here. Awesome. And be a member now of Go Long. So
love it, man. Thanks so much. And we still got to catch up.
We will.
Definitely. Peter Mara. Can you hear us?
Hey, Tyler, can you hear me?
Yes, we got you.
All right. Convoluted path. Born and raised Rochester, New York. Entire family's Bills fans. I'm a Packers shareholder. All because I rooted for a guy from Western New York back in the late 80s named Don Mikowski. So, but now living in Central Florida and just happy to be on.
That's awesome, man. We might have actually, I can't remember if we were talking about it in an email, but actually I just hung out with Don Mikowski and Depew a few weeks ago. So we'll have a story up hopefully this week. The Magic Man. Bob, right. you covered all 6 years of his in Green Bay, right?
I sure did. Yeah. I know he's had terrible physical problems, right, Tyler?
Physical, meant everything. Yeah, everything. Yeah. It's been a rough go for Don. All right, we got a few more here, I think, right? I see Craig Kalibi. Sorry.
Kalibi.
I was close.
I've been a fan of Mr. McGinn since I was a kid, although I'm not a kid myself. I've been Packer fan since the 1970s. I'm a Milwaukee season ticket holder and an owner. I relocated to Arizona about a year ago, and I'm still going back for my games, and I'm actually going to get to see them here in Phoenix this year as well. But fan of both of your work, and used to work in sports media myself on the radio side, and still can't get enough of it. So it's great. I'm in my car, but I'm not looking, so I'm safely driving. So, but I was really looking forward to this. So I appreciate you putting this on.
Holy cow, that's commitment, man. Thanks for making it happen. Josh,
No
good to see you back. Oh, sorry, Craig. Let's see. Josh, we had you on for Leroy, right?
No, I was not here for Leroy. I wish I was, though.
You were here for somebody, though. We definitely
I was here for Jordan Love's private quarterback coach.
That's right.
It was a good time.
Good to have you back, man. How's life?
Thank you. It's good. It's good. I got a couple of fingers of scotch here in honor of Aaron Rodgers' comeback game tonight after a disappointing career game against the Saints, of course. So, what better way to kick off the game than obviously talking with you guys.
Awesome. And we got Jeff down there. Looks like he's hard at work somewhere. I like it.
I just finished my day in the office, seeing patients. How's it going, Bob? How's it going, Tyler?
Good, Jeff.
Doing good, man.
So, Bob, I got a big question for you. There's nothing to do with football. Did you get the new phone yet?
No, we still got the burner working. But I think I'm getting that used smartphone, so now I can go to some events, Jeff. I can't get a ticket. I can't get into a high school game anymore without a phone.
Why is it? Why can't you get into high school games?
They won't take money, man.
Oh, that's right. It's so funny. Everywhere you go, it's like they don't. It's all they take is credit cards because they don't want to. They're worried about you getting COVID from cash, which is ridiculous, actually.
Thanks, Doc. Yeah.
Oh,
insane. My God.
Insane.
Well, I have to tell you, this is a surreal experience for me, seeing you and Tyler at the same time. It's I can't tell you what I'm more excited for, the actual game or the podcast after the game. I think it actually might be the podcast after the game is more exciting to me than the game at this point.
Oh man, we feel bad for you, but we'll try.
No, you guys are great. The memories are just, the one about Ted Thompson not blinking. I almost had a hernia. I was laughing so hard.
There were so many stories that people were just like emailing me from back in like 2011 and 20 that I just totally forgot about. I'm surprised anybody even listened to us. The audio quality was probably just absolute garbage. We don't know what the hell we're doing, but people enjoyed it. So I'm glad we could bring everybody back.
Oh yeah. Tyler, do you remember the time that you and Bob did a podcast and somehow you didn't press the record button?
Oh my God, yes. And we had to redo everything.
You had to redo the whole thing.
Oh, that was.
Oh God.
I gotta say, Bob, like you really did not have like one. There wasn't 1 second where you were angry at all when you had every right to be angry. No, you didn't. You were totally cool. I think it was better the second time around.
I don't remember that one.
Oh my God. Wait, and then
interesting.
Oh, sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say what's interesting. It's funny you say that, Tyler, because there was no way. Did you guys back then have any way of tracking how many people were listening to the podcast?
I want the Journal Sentinel might have known, but we never had a clue. I mean, for all we knew, like a dozen people listened. Like we had no idea. I mean, it was so early on in podcasts. There just weren't a lot of them out there in general.
Yeah, Tyler, you had the classic opening to every podcast. It was always the same. It was this. How's it going, everybody?
I got to mix it up. I got to mix it. And I'm probably doing the same thing again.
No.
I like the fact you had different music every time.
Yes, Tyler, it was your signature. It was perfect. Nice and chill, nice and mellow.
Oh man. Well, we do them we're doing them in the morning, so we're gonna be just hopped up on microwave coffee, not alcohol. So at least we promise we're not drunk for them.
We got to get our top 10 lists together over time. Microwave coffee is going to be one of them, right?
I tell you what, like I thought it was the grossest thing in the world. Like you would pop that coffee in the microwave like 2, 3, 4 times throughout the morning, because we'd hang out before we'd hit record, and then we'd hang out after, and constantly. I thought it was so freaking gross, and then I started having kids, and our coffee would just get cold and shitty, and like you don't have a choice. Like you have to do it. Necessity.
It's survival. Oh my God.
Awesome. Well, this is awesome. It's great to have all you guys here, and I'll shut the hell up and let Bob talk, because nobody wants to hear me. Bob, what's happening on your end tonight?
Kind of a rainy night here outside Ann Arbor. I think it was my 49th round of golf here this afternoon. Walked 18 over. I try to walk every time, and these courses are pretty good about it. You just walk, man, and it's no problem. And you're not slow. All these people in carts, heck with that stuff. So that was fun, and here I am. Pat made some dinner, and we're ready for a football game, huh?
Yeah.
Well, the cool thing about like bringing Bob on, I got to say, more than anything, is I feel like to so many people on the outside, Bob McGinn is like this man of mystery. Like everybody sees your name and has read your work for decades, and nobody covers the team like you. Nobody has an eye like you when it comes to this game. But like, to your credit, Bob, when it comes to the radio stuff, the TV stuff, you're like, I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that horse. Like, you like, you don't care about any of that, where a lot of people in media do. It's more about perception than reality with a lot of writers and TV people across the country. So it's just great to have you here, and people can kind of see the personality and the person that I got to see every day. I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say Bob was like a Green Bay dad for me out there in Wisconsin. Like it was, we had a lot of good times on the road. They're just at your house. It was a lot of fun, Bob. So if anybody's got questions, just fire away.
Yep. Glad to be with you, Tyler. So anybody who wants to chime in, fire away.
What? So, Bob, as somebody who's relatively new to your work, being a Buffalonian and whatnot, on the first podcast, you were doing a great breakdown of the grades that you gave players from last year, and said you used the same criteria for many, many years. Without going into detail on every position, what is some of the main criteria that you use for your grading?
Okay, let me just say, a C is a pretty good grade. I mean, I really think it is. And I discussed that in that podcast, at the University of Michigan. I mean, okay, I won't repeat that, but a C is a solid grade. If a guy's a backup, he's got to really be great on special teams. Otherwise, he's getting a D. I mean, he just is. Unless a guy plays 2 or 3 games as a starter and is a situation sub, okay, that I could see, but it's tough to get a C. And on the curve, I mean, even when they won the Super Bowl, I think I probably only gave, I could go back and look at 96 and 2010, maybe 6 A's. I believe in tough grades. And so then if you're given a whole bunch of A's, then what value is it? So I never gave an A+. So A minus, there's a difference in that, then B+, B minus. And when you have a bunch of gradations there within that grade category, I think everybody just kind of knows where a player fits on the team. Its value to the team, impact on the team, and really playing time is crucial too.
Hey, Bob, I got a question for you. Whenever you looked at the grades, to me, I always thought, you got your superstars, but it's the number of players that you have between like B+, B, and B- that can really make the difference. When you look at some of the teams that were, that went to the Super Bowl or went to championship games. Did you ever compare, just forget the individual players, the sheer distribution of the number of C's, the number of B+, B minuses, and B, that distribution?
Jeff, I never really did that. And something else I never did, I never looked at the previous year's grades when I was doing the current season at the end of the season. I didn't want to be influenced on what a guy got in the past. I just took them on that year, 16, 18, 20 games, whatever it was. Very seldom did I go back and look at on those Super Bowl teams, how many A whatever they had, but I'm sure I've used the same criteria since I started doing the grades. The grades started in 91, my first year at the Milwaukee Journal. And so for 31 years, I've had the same criteria. So that would be I think it would give you a good idea, the strength of all those various Packer teams by looking at the grades.
Yeah. The one
Bob,
thing,
I
Tyler,
Bob, I enjoy your archive work and going back along. So I'm going to ask a real question. Well, old for me at least. Bart Starr came into the position as head coach and general manager when Dan Devine left the cupboard completely bare with the Lawrence Welk trade. I don't think anybody else would have taken that job. By the time he figured out how to do things and how to get things done, he had a defense that was decimated by the USFL with Mike Butler leaving and things like that. What's your assessment of the Bart Starr era? It seemed like the first 3 or 4 years, you really couldn't even fairly evaluate the guy because he had no draft picks, had no talent or very little talent, but it seemed like he started to get things figured out, and then the USFL raided that team. What are your thoughts of that era and where he was going as a coach and as an executive?
Well, Craig, let's go to the last game he coached, okay? 23-21, they lose on a frozen day at Soldier Field, 1983. If they won that game, I think the Rams took care of to help the Packers. Had they won the game, they're in, right? I think I'm right on that.
You are, and Kevin Butler hit that field goal right at the end, I believe.
Yep. Horrible, cold, 3-degree day or something. But look at the last 2 minutes, how he mismanaged the clock, mismanaged timeouts. I mean, he had been in this business 9 years as a coach. GM, I think he got stripped of that after 6 years, maybe, I believe. So even after 9 years, the basic rudimentary part of his job, he couldn't execute in the clutch when a playoff berth is on the line. You go back and look at that play by play, and it was a disgrace. So yes, he got a little bit better. It helped him when he was no longer GM. I mean, he sided with there's all kinds of things I can talk to you about, but he sided with the coaches over Dick Cork and the scouts on too many draft picks. He got a little bit better later on after he was just coaching, but certainly not enough to warrant another year. I mean, I think it's 51, 77, and 3 in 9 years. I think that's the worst record in NFL history of a guy who got 9 years.
It was bad. The only thing I can say, and I'll cite the current year's example, is sometimes when you replace a coach, you don't end up with a better coach. I hope that's not the omen for the defensive coordinator, but I think, Starr certainly wasn't the best coach in the world, but man, those Forrest Gregg teams were an embarrassment. They were just bad.
Yeah. They played physical the first 2 years. I'll give him that. But his offense was a mess. And then he fired Bob Schmelker and Lou Carpenter. And the offense got really bad under Tom Coughlin and Greg himself. Greg's first 2 years, 8-8. But, I mean, he did some good things. And then his last 2 years was a disaster, and he walked away.
Bob, I got a question for you. Super Bowl, I believe it's Super Bowl 32 against the Broncos. I'm sure you didn't grade out the defensive line of the Packers that well. The Broncos' offensive line just had their way with them, and Terrell Davis just smashed them. What are your thoughts on that game? And I know Mike Holmgren at some point during the offseason pulled all his coaches in and said, was livid looking at the tape. So your thoughts and memories about that particular punt?
You know, remember Sean Jones walked away after the Tigers, right? And they didn't really work to bring him back. And I think that hurt him. They started Gabe Wilkins instead of Sean Jones. And Gabe Wilkins was a bigger body, but Sean Jones was near the end, but Gabe Wilkins really couldn't play. And Gabe played very poorly in that Super Bowl. Who was the guy who came in after he got hurt? Oh, man. Who was that backup D lineman? And he got run over
Darius
too.
Holland?
I think you're right, T. Darius Holland.
I mean, that game put me in tears. I was a Packer fan, in fourth grade.
Good
so
ball.
Yeah.
So Gilbert Brown, it was overweight. It was a little hot that day in San Diego. Reggie White was terrible in that game when you look at that tape. Santana Dotson played okay. They tackled poorly. And, Mike Shanahan and Heimerdinger and those guys, they got Leroy Butler out of the box, away from the running game. They split Shannon Sharp out there. Mistake by Fritz Shermer not getting Leroy in that box. He was making all the tackles all year round. And they mauled him.
Yes, they did.
As I recall, they had a backup defensive lineman that they sat out, they inactivated, and they put an extra defensive back in because they were worried about Elway killing him, and Terrell Davis just ate him alive. And the other frustration was Dorsey Levens was ripping off chunks of yards, and they stopped giving him the ball. It was inexplicable.
You're dead right on that one. Levens had a great first half, never got the ball. Terrible play calling by Holmgren there to forget about Dorsey Levens. I think that inactive D lineman, I'm guessing Bob Kaburski, the guy from Navy. You think that's right, Craig?
I thought it was a defensive end. I think Kaburski was on the team at that time, but he was a journeyman guy. They picked him up on the waiver wire. I don't think it was Kaburski. I thought it was like a backup defensive end. Can't think of his name, though. I'm sure it's in your Super Bowl book.
Craig, I'm going to go get that book. You guys keep talking. I'll be right back.
Because we can't move on without knowing this. I mean, this is huge.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Tyler. I mean, if we don't figure this out, you might as well cancel the whole thing.
Go long will fold. Where's our credibility if you can't figure this out? Like
the fact that he remembered the last 2 minutes from Bart Starr's last game in 1983 when they lost to the Bears with the playoffs on the line. I mean, the fact that he says, he made terrible mistakes in the last 2 minutes. I mean, this is what we pay our money for, right? That's why he's the legendary Bob McGinn.
It's insane. I mean, it's insane to see this guy operate up close. I mean, he's
all right, you guys.
humble, but yeah.
On the inactive list for Green Bay, and my wife Pat did a lot of these stats. We had all the play-by-plays, and she keyboarded these in. Okay, on the inactive list for Green Bay, wide receiver Bill Schrader, wide receiver Ronnie Anderson. I don't remember him. Tackle John Michaels, guard Joe Andruzzi, QB Doug Peterson. Defensive end, Paul Frase, Frase. Defensive tackle, Jermaine Smith. And safety, Blaine McElmurray. That's it.
Oh.
Okay. So the backups were Darius Holland, Keith McKenzie, and Bob Kaburski on the defensive front.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I remember they had a chance on that final drive. There's two little slip screens to Darcy Levens. To get them down the field, and then they just folded when it came, and Shanahan brought the pressure. And missing, I think it was Chimura, on the fourth down to try to extend the drive. So when it counted, boy, Denver really, really made the plays that counted.
All right, let's mention one more thing on that final possession, right? The drop by Antonio Freeman on about the 11 or 12.
Right.
I'm sure it was the biggest drop of his career. That was a massive play.
Was that the one that he got helicoptered by, was it Mike Pryor, I think? Or am I thinking of a different play?
You're thinking of Elway's run. Elway got a helicopter.
No. On the last drive, because 2 Broncos got knocked out.
Atwater and
Right.
Braxton, right? They
It could be
took out
Braxton, yes.
Robert Brooks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. That's
No,
players.
I mean, we'd never see Terrell Davis. You know, I know the migraines were the issue, but he had to have like a concussion. Like you'd never see something like that today, where he is in that much of a fog. I mean, he gets that just battered around and doesn't even know where the hell he is. And they throw him. Hey, you can't see. No big deal. You don't need to see on this play. Like what he did was unbelievable.
So Tyler, I'm going to embarrass Bob for a second. It's like you said, he's like the most humble dude in the world. Bob, share with everybody on, when you do review of the game, when you do the tape, just for that part of your job, how many hours does that take to do the tape every week?
About 8. The problem was, Jeff, 8. It's always been about 8. But the problem was when I was at the Journal Sentinel, we got earlier and earlier deadlines, you know, on that Monday night. And they had to have the rating the Packers, you know, rather than 11 p.m. or 11:30 p.m., then it started to become 10. And then I remember 9:30 and then 9. And on road games, when I'd be walking in, when the flights were on time back to Green Bay, and I'd be getting into the house at maybe at the earliest 11 a.m., well, I couldn't watch as much tape as I wanted. I had to zip through it quicker in order to run downstairs, pull out the computer, and start writing the rating the Packers. The last 4 years with my own website, well, with my son and then The Athletic, there was no deadline. But that's a blessing and a curse. I mean, I found myself still spending the 8 hours, but then eating dinner at, say, 7 p.m., and then writing from 8:30 to 4.
So then it's really, Bob, it's about 16 to 20 hours, the whole process.
Yeah. And it was just got to be too much. And out of the goodness of his heart, Tyler took me on, and we're doing it in podcast style now. So after this game tonight, or, you know, I don't, after watching the tape, I can go to bed and then do the podcast.
Yeah, you know, but the point I'm making is that kind of commitment, you're saying, well, you got it down to 8 to 10 hours. That's the you know, the slim down version. I just think it's remarkable, and we all get the benefit of it. So you would never talk about it unless I put you on the spot, but it's pretty incredible. And I think that's kind of what Tyler's talking about.
Thanks, Jeff.
The other thing that Bob won't talk about that people don't see is you know, so this comes out, right, Bob? Like nobody's looking at the game and what the hell happened like you are. It's, you know, you're using your experience, your eyes, you're pointing out what went right, what went wrong. Then Wednesday and Thursday and Friday come, and you're in that locker room. And, you know, we had Frank Winters on here like a few months ago. He remembered like run-ins with you back in the day. Like, damn it, Bob, pointing this out and that out. What the hell? Like, they don't want this stuff outside of to get out of the meeting rooms when their coaches are reaming their ass. And I mean, you're just letting the readers know what happened. I mean, you've got to have so many memorable run-ins with guys where he's laughing about it now. Like, but I just remember like 2011, like my welcome to the NFL beat moment and the respect like that you command in there. You had to ask Scott Wells something, like you were trying to understand something that happened in a game, and Scott Wells, he's butt ass naked, just covering his junk in his locker, and like, but he's willing to talk to you. You had to get an answer to one of your questions, and that was like the only time he was in there. He talked like that for like 20 minutes. I mean, how many players are doing that for a report? I don't think that happens very often.
Oh God, there's a lot of great guys and a lot of people who taught me an awful lot of football, everyone. I had such access on that beat, especially early, you know, the first 15 years. I mean, you could literally turn out the lights in the locker room after a Thursday or a Wednesday during the regular season. You know, Lynn Dickey and I would be there, we're the last two people in the locker room. And he'd get up, Bob, I got to go now. He says, turn out the light, okay? And literally, I would go down to that corner and turn out the light and head out the loading dock by the equipment guy and see you tomorrow, Bob Noel, you know. But players would spend so much time, and assistant coaches, they were all available after every practice. it was just a smorgasbord to how to learn football. Players would take my notebook. Here, let me diagram that. You're asking me these questions. Let me diagram this stuff, and 3 technique and whatever, cover 2, quarters. So I'm a huge debt of gratitude for all those people who gave me of their time to teach me the game.
What do you think the negatives are these days, the way teams are covered now? And with the COVID restrictions, and that's loosening up a bit, but do you feel like the heart and soul of getting to know a team and players has been diminished through the years, or am I just reading too much into it?
No, you're completely correct. Just look at free agency. So I got on the beat as a backup in '79 and full-time in '84. Ken Rutgers and Rich Moran, they were both offensive linemen drafted in 1985. And Rutgers played, his last season was 1995, 11 years, never played anywhere else. And Rich Moran played from 85 to 93. He never played anywhere else. I mean, I got to know those guys really, really well. Really well. Throughout, I knew about their families, and there was so much time in there to chit chat and to get to know people that now when the locker room's open for 30 or 45 minutes, writers are just pressed for time. I mean, you don't have much time and you have a certain number of stories and you got to be really organized. And you say, okay, you want, this tight end on this and the special teams guy over here and here and here. You don't have a whole lot of time to bullshit and get to know people. But I think teams want it that way too. They want to build a fence and they want to keep the media away. I think it's a mistake, especially in Green Bay where the team is community owned, and I just do. And I don't think teams should have anything to hide, and especially in kind of a benevolent media market like Green Bay still is.
All right. Great answer.
Bob, I want to ask about the Lions of all things. So my working theory is that the team is haunted by a 20-plus-year-old decision of Barry Sanders to retire. I guess my first question is, what was the real reason Barry Sanders opts in the prime of his career to retire? And 2, why among all 32 teams are the Lions sort of like stuck in this like perpetual mediocrity that seems more deeply held than anywhere else?
So Chris, I know nothing about the Sanders retirement. Okay. So I'm no BS. I don't know anything about it. The Lion organization, it's the Ford family. That's the common denominator, right? And I know a lot of people who've worked there over the years, general managers, staffers, and coaches. And that's my home state. I was born and raised in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, went to school in Ann Arbor. People love working for the Ford family. There's no doubt about that. I could cite 5 people right now off the top of my head who told me that. A great person, William Clay Ford, was the owner until his death, and then his wife took over, and now Hamp, the woman. A good guy. He paid him well. He was really respectful of his employees. There weren't a whole lot of, knee-jerk firings or anything like that. But yet, football expertise, that family does not have it. They just never have. Chuck Schmidt, a business guy, was their general manager. The decision by Bill Jr. to bring Matt Millen in as general manager. He's the worst GM in NFL history, really. I don't see how you could argue that.
He did the Bills game yesterday, too, as an analyst.
Oh, he was terrible. Oh, he was awful.
Yeah.
Oh, God, he was.
Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt, but yeah.
Not really. Just, when it came time to a coaching hire or a GM hire, they would have to hire committees or search firms, something like that. There just was never enough expertise in-house to challenge a Green Bay or to challenge the Vikings, who were a well-run operation with all kinds of veteran front office people. And then the Bears, were certainly have generally been better than the Lions all these years. So they've just been a doormat, and it's a sad deal. Never been in the Super Bowl. They're a long ways away right now. We'll see with this current operation.
So if they beat the Packers tonight, everybody should just panic here. That's in Packers gear. Like the sky will be falling at that point.
I think that's probably about right, but they got an extra game this year. There'd be 15 more, T.
Yeah, that's true.
But if the Lions should win this game, wow.
Yeah, can't see it, but that would be rough.
How long was this streak that had gone on, at least at Lambeau, right? It was like 20 years, right?
Yeah. The last victories had been in those freezing cold days in 1990 and 1991. And then they never won again until, 2018?
Something like that.
19? Yeah. Mel Gray returned a punt in one of those 91 games. It was really cold. Rodney Peete was the QB for one of them at least. And that was the end of the Lindy and Fonte era.
91, they went to the NFC Championship game, lost to the Washington football team, almost slipped there.
Yeah.
That's right. Eric Kramer.
Last division title for the Lions was 93. Do you believe that? 28 years ago.
Yeah, and that was the year Favre got him in the playoffs with the touchdown on the road to Sterling Sharp.
Yeah, to Sharp. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jim Monos is in the house. What's up, Jim?
I was just going to ask Bob about that throw from Brett Favre to Sterling Sharp because I was in college watching that game, and I'll never forget it. But now everybody has a strong arm. That Favre used to be the only guy that could do that. I think everybody can make that throw now.
We're up in that press box at the Silverdome, Jim, and I love that place. I'm the only guy in the world who loved the Silverdome. But anyway, I was in that second row because you could see the TV monitor and you couldn't in the first. And he's crazy quilt scramble over towards me on about the 40-yard line. And he's coming towards me. And then I just saw the arc of that ball way across the field, I'll never forget that play. It's probably the most memorable play I ever covered in Green Bay. I think it maybe is. I just saw the arc of it. The whole play just unfolded beneath me.
That's the only.
You know what's interesting? About that pass? Bob, you know what's interesting about the pass? It had the directness and kind of like that laser feel to it. Very similar to that pass to Kittrick Taylor to beat the Bengals. When you hear Favre talk about that pass, or you hear other people, he's like, the Bengals didn't think I could make that throw. They didn't think I could make that throw. And that pass to Sharp was just so perfect. It wasn't too high. It was just laser, and it was incredible. I remember watching. I remember as my parents' family were watching it, and a bunch of shit ended up getting on the floor because we were all celebrating. But yeah, it was iconic.
Hey Bob, I've been dying to ask you a couple questions, and they involve the Hall of Fame, and I feel like the Hall of Fame a little bit needs to back off a little bit. It seems they're letting a lot of people in. And that's question number one. It just seemed a little much. My next question, does Sterling Sharp, it's not going to ever happen for him? Like he just won't ever get in?
If Tony Baselli gets in, he played about the same number of games as Sharp, right?
I like that.
So maybe there would be an opening for Sharp. In terms of the Hall of Fame, Jim, I'm not a real good one to ask.
You love it?
I think I'm the only guy in the world who does not think writers should be involved in the selection process. I think it should be retired scouts, something like that, one from each team, let all the biases equal out. They know the football, and any writer who does his job on that committee would be talking to the scouts anyway, or assistant coaches. Let the scouts do it. Writers should not be that involved. We have a job to do. We all have an employer. It takes away from your job, I think, and I'm dead set against it. And that's why I turned down a couple chances to be on that selection committee. I know I'm way out in left field on this one, but that's one thing I feel strongly about.
That makes a lot of sense, Bob, especially for offensive linemen and interior linemen, scouts and personnel people. you're right about that. I mean, that's what we were paid to do, and we know all those guys. And Jairi Evans is a guy from that I scouted for the Saints from Bloomsburg University, who his resume says NFL offensive lineman Hall of Fame. It's just as good as Steve Hutchinson's. And I hope he gets a chance, but I mean, I don't know how, who's going to put him in.
Yep.
Hey,
So,
Ty,
Joe,
can I ask a question?
Absolutely. Sorry, no, I couldn't see who that was.
It's Trigby.
Hey, Trigby, what's up?
How are you, man?
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. Hey, Bob, so I'm a huge fan of yours because I think I've learned more about my business from you and what I do for a living than anyone that I've ever read, including people in my own business. But one of the things that always has resonated with me, you used to do these pieces where you talked about blue chip players, red chip players, etc. And I'm a little bit of a pack rat. So I save Bob McGinn columns where he does that for the Packers every year. So I was thinking in 96, you had 4 blue chip players on the Packers. You had Eugene Robinson, you had Brett Favre, you had Leroy Butler, and you had Reggie White, right? In 96, you had 2 that you said were blue chip players. And you always talk about blue chip players are the guys who win for you in the NFL. So how many blue chip players are on this year's Packers team?
Now, one thing now,
And I think I would add what I learned about my own business is it is blue chip players and what I do for a living that actually make the difference.
Now, one thing I got to mention this now, it was never me doing those color codes.
Yeah,
it was always a pro scout for another team, various guys who I would get, and they would give their color coded grades, blue, red, purple, then yellow, whatever, brown, whatever his code was. So I never did that. Okay. So you'll see your question on, how many blues right now?
Yeah.
Rogers. Bakhtiari, based on last year, I'd give him maybe a blue minus. I mean, these are so rare. Zadarius Smith would have had a blue after the 2019 season. Last year, he'd been like a B plus, maybe a red plus. Anybody else?
Jenkins has got to be close. Jenkins has got to be really close. Elton Jenkins has got to be close.
No, not yet. I mean, he's just a second-year guy.
Devontae.
What about Adams?
He's a red.
Adams.
Aaron Jones is close. He's a red plus.
What about he's a red.
Devontae Adams is a blue. Adams was a blue off last year. Yeah. That's about it.
Bob, I kind of wanted to ask a little bit about your interactions with Ted Thompson. The Packers are honoring him tonight at halftime, at least from your reporter point of view. In your experience, obviously Ted was a man of few words. He didn't say much in press conferences. Kind of just wondering what your interactions with him as a reporter were like through the years.
He was hired in '92 as a pro scout, and he held that job. He moved up a little bit, director of player personnel in like '97, and then he went to Seattle. So for those 7 years, he was, just like John Dorsey or Reggie McKenzie, guys that you could quote now and then, guys you could talk to, but you really didn't need those guys much because Wolf returned virtually every phone call. And then Ted was in Seattle for about 4 or 5, and then he came back as the GM in '05. Ted gave me a considerable amount of time, and I enjoyed my dealings with him. It was certainly never anything like Ron Wolf, and as outspoken as Wolf was and free with his opinions, Wolf was, I don't think any situation in the first quarter. It's a really nice. I don't know that any general manager had a better working situation than I did with Wolf, But Ted was fine. I didn't have almost no problems with Ted, and I enjoyed my years working with him. And it's a real tragedy that he didn't enjoy his retirement for many more years.
For sure.
It's really, I don't know if people know, Bob. I mean, I wrote it in that Bleacher Report story a few years ago, but he really faded behind the scenes those last couple years. I mean, there were scouts, there were people in that front office that really wish somebody would have stepped in. I mean, it's really sad. I mean, his health went downhill in a hurry while he was still running the show.
No question.
It did.
That was
you could see him on the practice field really struggling, you know, that last summer that I was there and he was there. And yeah, it was hard to watch. After working all those years and giving his life, you know, to the Packers and to pro football as a player, and then not to be able to enjoy the fruits of his labor down in Atlanta, Texas, and his dad still living down there. Really, really a shame.
I got a
Bob.
Oh. Go ahead. No, quick question. This is something as a Bills fan I always wanted to understand, because living in Western New York and being in and out of Western New York and not knowing exactly what the deal was on the ground there in Wisconsin. The split games I think it's and you have to give me a time frame here, 80s to early 90s between Milwaukee and Green Bay. What was the genesis of that, and what was the impact on the fan base?
You know, Green Bay never would have survived without Milwaukee. And they were too small, and there just weren't enough people to support the team. So those games started being played in Milwaukee. I think there was the first they played at State Fair Park, and then at Marquette Stadium for a while, and then Milwaukee County Stadium when that was built in 1953. And that was a big place, 55,000 seats, whereas, you know, Old City Stadium had about 28, I believe. So they got at least twice the revenue on those 3 or 4 games down in Milwaukee. Packers really wouldn't have survived. Bob Harlan knows that. And that's why when the Packers pull out of Milwaukee after 94, he allowed all those season ticket holders at Milwaukee to take 1 exhibition game and 2 regular season games in the, the gold package up in Green Bay. That was a great decision by Bob Harlan, because that's a good question. Milwaukee is often forgotten, but it was crucial to the team's existence.
That's fabulous marketing.
You know, in '59, like the year after Lombardi came in, my dad bought season tickets to the Milwaukee games. So he had all those Milwaukee games all the way through, and then he passed them on to my older brother and I now. So I still get 2 games in Green Bay every year now on that gold package, going back to the awesome decision that my dad made.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yep. Do you guys
Box
remember
50 in row 1 on the third baseline? I sat 2 feet from the pylon of the corner of the end zone. We were the guys that had the legendary "Hey Buck, don't get burned," the burnt toast signs. We have about eight footballs in our family because that railing's only about 3 feet high. I was closer to the action than any other seat in the NFL, and I miss. It was a terrible place for most people to watch the game, but for that seat, goal line stands, you were right there. It was phenomenal.
That's just past that third baseline, right, where that pylon was?
Yeah.
You were right on top of the action. There's all kinds of people falling. I remember that. The press box was down to our left across the field. It was amazing how tight that was.
Tony Hill literally was in my lap. 1979, they were getting beat 42-14. Tony Hill ended up in my lap. My uncle and my best friend got their picture in the Packer yearbook. You couldn't see me because Tony Hill's feet were in front of me. And I can remember a couple of times Chris Carter catching a fade into the corner of the end zone right over Terrell Buckley, and giving him a bunch of crap. And we always just want him to spike the ball so we get the football.
That's wonderful.
Isn't that the end zone where Favre helicoptered in against Atlanta?
No, it was the opposite end. He ran to the bleachers.
Oh, he did. You're right. He did.
It was the bleachers.
That was to my right against the Falcons.
When Holmgren said, "Whatever you do, don't run."
And who did he run around from the Falcons? Who lost contain?
Was that Dion?
It was Chuck Smith, the Pro Bowl defensive end. And Chuck Smith had a hamstring in that game. Chuck ran a 4.6. Favre probably ran a 5.2 at that point. He would have hunted him down, but Chuck Smith had a bad hammy and he couldn't make it, and Brett scored.
I think Chuck Smith was number 91.
Yes, he was.
Okay.
Oh. Man, well, I know a lot of folks were chiming in there. So, we still got a good 10 minutes here if anybody has any questions, Packers otherwise. Jim, are you still on here? Monos?
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
Yeah,
I could talk Packers. I have questions for Bob, so I'm good.
They got you into scouting, right? You grew up a Packer fan, and that's
what I wanted to ask Bob. So what really got my interest in 1989 when I was a huge Packers fan growing up. You know, I was excited because back then all you saw was the Sports Illustrated article, and but I don't remember the name of their GM. Was it Tom something?
Rotz.
Did anybody ever ask him, because obviously that draft, that top 5 is off the charts famous. If they redrafted that, they had a good running back. I think Brent Fullwood was a good running back back then. So they weren't maybe desperate for a running back, but would they have taken, I wonder if who he would take if he could draft over.
Well, Infante, in his devious way, Infante told people several times, got back to me, that he wanted Barry Sanders there. So Rotz was fired, in November of 91, and then Wolf got hired about 3 weeks later. But he just believed that, Mandrich was the pick and everybody else would have taken Mandrich, and he never really went back on that thing.
I mean, that's just the curiosity of it. I just wonder, looking back on how it is, and I can't imagine with corners and pass rushers, the value that they have with Dion and Derek Thomas. It's just hard to believe. Now
Hall of Famers, and
that's just like
they got Mandrich.
But that end, Bob, how fast did the Packers know that Mandrich couldn't play? I mean, I read your thing on the Athletic, but I think
he held out. He held out for 45 days, so he missed all those one-on-ones in training camp. So you never saw him. Yeah. And practice to the media then during the regular season was open from all 2.5 hours. So we saw him in some scaled down one-on-ones, and it was pretty bad right from the start. There's no question about that. And he just looked smaller.
Yeah.
He had gotten off the juice, and he had lost his physical mauling ability, his physical edge, and he was just a guy. I mean, completely just a guy during all those 4 years in Green Bay.
We should get him on one of these happy hours. I bet he'd come on. He's out there talking, doing interviews. Yeah.
You wouldn't want to have me on it, I'll tell you that.
Did you guys have some battles?
You could screw Bob McGinn. He ain't coming on there.
Bob, I got one last question for you here. The legacy of Brett Favre, and there's a lot of Packer fans on here, so if they want to chime in, great. But do you think it's tarnished at all what happened later in his career, the Jets and the Vikings, and his willingness to be unhinged a bit on social media, or is that just water under the bridge and no one really cares?
Personally, I mean, I don't think anybody really should care, The guy went somewhere else, fine. The Jets didn't work out. He played brilliantly for the Vikings one of those 2 seasons. And he just, he made a mistake coming back for the Vikings. But no, I don't think so. It's just like Holmgren's legacy. It's a joke when people criticize Mike Holmgren for going to Seattle. Sometimes people in Green Bay, they get a little myopic, and if somebody leaves Green Bay, all of a sudden they weren't worthy. That's just very poor thinking. The smart Packer fans realize what Favre did, what Holmgren did, and they're happy for having them, happy for this massive turnaround that lives today, and that's their legacy. And so, no, I don't.
All right, fair enough.
You know what I noticed?
Well, see, he broke Viking fans' hearts. That's the best part of the whole thing, man. If you grew up in Western Wisconsin like I did, they got exactly what they deserved from him.
Bob, I have one question about a guy that who was a phenomenal player on the field once he figured things out and seemed to be good in the community, and then he did go to play for Minnesota. He went to play for the Saints and kind of went off the rails. And I think it's an example of some of the brain trauma stuff. But what the hell happened with Darren Sharper? I mean, seriously. I mean, you talk about a guy making an absolute 180 because he had a pristine reputation when he played for Green Bay. it took him a couple of years to figure out how to play, but he was an excellent safety at the peak of his career. And then he had all of the off the field troubles and sexual assaults and all sorts of other things. What happened to him? Do you ever hear any scuttlebutt about what happened to him?
No.
I just threw a story in there. I mean, I don't know if it will answer your question, but when I was at the Journal-Sentinel, I remember talking to a bunch of teammates about him, and it was like, you probably know this, Bob, but it was shocking beyond belief to everybody. I mean, if there were ever signs for, the atrocities of what he did, they didn't see anything close to it. Like, it was almost unspeakable. But no, I never really got to the bottom of it. Like, I wish I could. I don't think anybody did.
Because, I mean, there are guys in the league that are bad guys. Like Mossy Cade was a bad guy. Everybody knew he was kind of a bad guy. There's other guys in the league that have done some really bad things, but he made like a complete 180. It just seemed like it was really weird.
Yeah. I dealt with him, for all those years and had some battles with him and had some good times with him. And he was smart. He came from a really good family. Brother was a good guy. But this kind of actions, I just certainly didn't see coming.
Bob, I got a question for you since we're talking about Ted Thompson and they're going to commemorate him at halftime. Everybody who ever talks about him, even Goody now, it seems like one of the things that really resonated with a lot of people was Ted's incredible integrity as a person, meaning always trying to do basically the right thing. In your assessment of him, what do you think was his greatest strength as a GM and his greatest weakness?
Oh, I don't know, Jeff. That's a big question. And I just don't think I want to get into all that, okay? I just don't. I mean, I talked about Ted earlier, Jeff, I'm not going there on that one. It's too big.
Tell us the Cliff Crystal story, Bob. Do you have any Cliff Crystal stories for us?
He was my colleague and he helped me tremendously early on in my career. He was my boss for a while. He was sports editor, and then we were colleagues in Milwaukee. And he's just an outstanding reporter.
Bob, one other question. When all of the Favre stuff went on between Favre and Rodgers, and is he coming back or isn't he, that really tested the mettle of Mark Murphy early in his tenure. And you'd think that someone would learn from those things. And then we kind of went through this drama in the off season and whoever side you're on. But I'd always argued that when the Favre thing happened, if Bob Harlan had still been the president, none of that would have gotten to the point that it had gotten to. And I just think that, I don't know, Bob Harlan was such a good ambassador for the team and such a good kind of a caretaker for the organization. And Murphy's not quite the same guy. Obviously, they're all different, but I just think it could have been handled a lot differently. And I would have thought that he would have learned from his past mistakes this time.
It's a little hard for me because I'm, I haven't lived in Green Bay for 4 years. And so I'm just going to let that go right now.
Okay.
One thing I'll add to the, what do fans think about, Brett Favre? What I noticed this offseason, because sorry, it's getting all dark here in Western New York now. I tried to get a little light, but I got to replace a couple bulbs here. Is, cranking out those stories that go along. You guys probably read a lot of them. You know where I stand on it. Like, just feels like they missed an opportunity to just get maximum value and bite the bullet, all that. But, when it was really at its apex, and Charles Robinson had that report in Yahoo that Aaron Rodgers wants Gutekunst fired, like the GM needs to be gone for him to want to be back. And by the way, he never came out and said that was incorrect. I just sensed like fans realized Favre wanted back in, Aaron Rodgers wants out, and they kind of saw it for what it was on that level. Since then, he has spoken and tried to mend some fences, and if he plays better, and looks like he cares more than he did in the week one, game against the Saints, I'm sure fans will come around and whatever. But like, I think with Favre, people appreciated that, and in retrospect, appreciate the fact that like they didn't want him and he wanted to kick their ass. Like there's that human element that I think Wisconsinites and Packer fans can really almost appreciate at this point now, a few years removed from it. But tell me if I'm wrong. We got a lot of Packer fans here.
I think a big part of that, Ty, and we've talked about it on DM, and I work in and around PR at a pretty high level, right? Like Brett Favre wasn't as insulated by PR professionals as Rodgers clearly is, and the environment's changed. I mean, Bob was talking about how Ron Wolf was a lot more open. If you were to think about the governor of Wisconsin was a lot more open when Ron Wolf was GM, right? Like politics, corporate, all of that stuff, it's just become more guarded. And some of that's a function of more diverse media landscape. Some of it's a function of people walk around with cameras everywhere. And some of it's, if you're the PR guy for the Packers, right? Like, I don't want Aaron Rodgers all pissed off that Tyler Dunn ripped into him in Bleacher Report and treated him unfairly, and then he's a pissed off customer. So
bring it on. That's fine.
So fuck Tyler Dunn. We're not giving him shit, right? Like that becomes the attitude. So
I'll be everybody's heel. That's fine. I don't care. No, that's a great point. It's different. Like, I don't think, you were there in the 90s, Bob. Like, there was PR, but I don't think these players star players weren't surrounded by like a team of handlers. And, Aaron's very good at articulating a message in the court of public opinion. And I don't think anything was really by accident. And I don't think Favre really gives a damn about any of that. Like, it's just a lot more authentic, and it was a different time. And we'll see how it plays out. We'll see. But
you're right.
That was awesome, guys. Man, thanks so much for coming on. I feel like we could go on forever, but they're gonna probably kick off here in a few minutes, right?
This has been phenomenal. Thank you.
Oh, thank
Thanks
you,
to
guys.
all you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Tyler,
it.
and thanks, Tyler. Thanks, Bob. That was amazing.
Appreciate the support, you guys, from all of you. Your interest is incredible. Thank you.
Honestly, it means everything, guys. Thank you so much for supporting and investing in us. And I think you guys are gonna like what Bob has cooking in a week or so. We'll just leave it at that. I don't want to give out more than Bob wants me to, but it's gonna be a good one. So thanks so much.
Great job, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye.